The Wire is a critically acclaimed American television series created by David Simon. The show aired on HBO from 2002 to 2008, spanning 5 seasons with a total of 60 episodes. Centered around the city's drug trade, it's known for its realistic portrayal of various aspects of Baltimore, Maryland. And it's known for its multifaceted narrative structure, which takes a look at the likes of the city's educational system, print media, political system, among other institutions and bureaucracies. Omar Little is one of the most iconic characters from The Wire. Portrayed by Michael K. Williams, Omar is a complex and compelling figure known for his strict moral code and distinct appearance, often walking around the streets of Baltimore with his sawed-off shotgun and bandana. A robber of drug dealers, Omar is a thorn in the side of the likes of Avon. Polished retelling of them from the hoppers and street dealers of Baltimore makes Omar a legendary figure, a mythical one even, whose reputation precedes him to the extent that he can rock up to a stash house based on real events, such as when he jumps out of a building 4 floors high. In fact, in real life, Donnie Andrews, who Omar is based off, jumped from a higher point. In any case, Omar retires after a successful heist in season 4, but when his mentor Butchie is tortured to death as bait to bring him back by Marlo's goons, Omar returns and goes on rampage against the Stanfield organization. He even has a kill list of who he's going to punish, foregoing the promise he made to Detective Bunk Moreland about not dropping any more bodies. And so Omar begins his crusade of revenge, murdering Stanfield goons, destroying vials and blowing up cars. He declares to the streets of Baltimore that Marlo is not a man for this town, that he's a coward who's too afraid to fight him. It's adrenaline-rushing stuff. And then Omar takes a break from his bravado to get some cigarettes from the store. And then, in the most shocking, unceremonious... This death is the most infuriating of the entire show. We were robbed of Omar's revenge. Omar versus Marlo on the fiery streets of Baltimore. We wanted it one way, but it's the other way. Yes, it was probably going to end in a flurry of bullets for Omar anyway, but surely he'd go out all guns blazing. But to get punked by a kid? I must be losing my motherfucking mind. But once you get over it, you realise how perfect it is. For the staple character of the show, the most iconic one, to be taken out by a nothing character. Omar is a wild card of the show. He's like a romanticised Wild West character. The Wire even uses Wild West imagery in the show, like when Omar and Brother Mouzone have a face-off. He is like Jesse James, like Wild Bill Hancock, and like those legendary larger-than-life men, he too was shot in the back of the head by lesser men, men who were fascinated but ultimately disappointed in these men who had huge reputations. The assassination of Omar Little by the coward Kenard. You see, it isn't just a random character the showrunners picked to kill Omar. It was precisely the perfect character, because Kenard has development sprinkled throughout the show, whose climax was him taking out Omar. In his first scene back in season 2 or 3, we see Kenard with a bunch of other kids, in the aftermath of a shooting in which Omar was involved in and a person died. Kenard is playing a game of cops and hoppers with the other young'uns, and they're fighting over who gets to be the next Omar. Kenard wanting to mimic his hero.
Yo, I'm trying to be Omar. No, give me like it.
Bunk is disgusted and relays this to Omar, who seems affected by it, struck by the fact that the violence he's involved in ripples out to places he wasn't aware of. So obviously, Kenard looked up to Omar, and over the course of the show, he develops into a cold, hard, sociopathic and rather scary hopper. For someone so young to retain no childhood sense of wonder or zeal and instead act like a stone-hard gangster is just as sad as it is terrifying. Just before he kills Omar, you can see he's about to set fire to a cat, pouring flammable liquid on it. In his final scene when he's arrested and being taken away, he has that same blank expressionless look on his face that he has throughout the show. There's something quite unsettling about this kid. No code, no loyalty, and damn sure no respect, as Bunny Colvin says, of the new era of gangsters, and Kenard is a perfect illustration. But anyway, in season 5, a limping Omar, a shadow of his former self, threatens Michael and a bunch of other hoppers and then hobbles away. As he ambles off, Kenard is audibly shocked, saying,
That's Omar? Dang. Gimpy as a motherfucker.
It's a case of meeting your heroes. Up close and personal, Omar must have looked pathetic compared to whatever image Kenard had conjured up in his head of him. It's the Dickinson aspect. He must feel disgusted, betrayed even. He doesn't run with the rest of the kids when Omar approaches, showing he is no longer afraid. And a few minutes later he shoots Omar dead. Maybe Kenard wanted to know if it was even possible. Surely at the last minute Omar would whip out his shotgun and blast Kenard away. I mean, Omar saw him walk in and dismissed him. But no, Omar goes down as any man would. The circle is complete. Omar is killed by a product of his own making, by the only person who didn't think Omar's hobbling around on his own was a trap. He saw it for what it was, that the Emperor has no clothes on. So it looks like a completely random anticlimactic death, but it's actually a case of Omar being killed by one of the ripple effects of his own violence that Bunk was talking about. Omar even saw Kenard walk in, sees that it's just a kid and dismisses it. It harks back to a scene where Omar is scoping Marlo, sees Michael, another character who would eventually shoot at Omar, and actually ends up becoming the next Omar. And Omar says, he's just a kid. These old-timers like Omar and Prop Joe didn't see that, as Slim Child would say, the game was getting more fierce, the thugs were getting younger, and your own family could betray you. Ultimately, I think if you asked Kenard why he did it, even he wouldn't be able to articulate it. There's a few muddy reasons swimming in his head. Maybe he wanted to be the one to take out the legend. Maybe he wanted Marlo's bounty. Maybe he wanted to increase his rep. But no reason concrete enough to justify the murder of a man. It's simply senseless. The kind of senseless violence that Bunk saw Omar breeding through the example he was setting on the streets. Apparently the shock on Kenard's face wasn't even acting. According to the book All the Pieces Matter, Tholiso Dingwall was genuinely traumatized by the scene and started crying uncontrollably soon after. And really a key reason that Kenard murdered a man might be because he was simply curious to see what would happen. As curious as to see what would happen when you douse a cat in chemicals and set a match. Maybe that's why he didn't take credit. Maybe his story was lost among many people's stories. Maybe he was scared of the cops, of Omar's people, of even going back to Marlo and getting popped by the Stanfields because they'd rather it was known that they killed Omar instead of some random kid. Maybe pulling a trigger is easy enough, but witnessing what it did and looking at the dead body put the kid into shock. Or maybe Kenard didn't say anything because he's a humble motherfucker with a big ass dick. You know, I wonder what happened to Kenard. He looks like he's between 8 to 12 years old. I imagine he'd be in a juvenile detention centre but wouldn't face as much jail time as an adult. I doubt he'd be respected as the guy who took out Omar when he's released, and instead he'd probably think of himself as invincible and he gets himself killed. Dead or prison for life, he's got that written all over him. One of the themes of The Wire is the endless cycles, which is best represented by characters turning into other characters. We've discussed some of these on the channel already, but you have the likes of Michael becoming Omar and Dookie becoming Bubbles. Who would Kenard turn into, I wonder? Bodhi, maybe? I don't quite see it. Bodhi still had a heart. There was potential in him, whereas Kenard comes off as a straight-up psycho. Marlo? I don't know. He's got that coldness, but it takes intelligence and charisma to make it to the top. And there's nothing to suggest Kenard had any of that. He's not important enough to become the new Omar. And plus, even Marlo had a soft side with his birds, whereas Kenard is burning cats. However, he does punk Naaman by stealing from him and then convincing him the cops raided his house. And for such a young kid, that does show he does have some cunning. He's also skilled enough to work a corner at such a young age. But in all honesty, he'd probably be dumb and angry, have an undiagnosed personality disorder, and would get into some kind of trouble along the way. And there is such a dumb and angry character in this show who got put away. Bird. Remember him? Who got jailed after Omar's testimony in season 2? I mean, a Kenard is a type of bird. And Bird's name is Bird. Get it? Maybe it's the show's way of telling us Kenard will basically be the next Bird. Both of these characters appear disturbed and have a never back down attitude, but one that is irritating, loud and cocky. Both took a beating for running their mouths. Bird in the interrogation room when he insults Kima, and Kenard when he is plummeted by Michael. Both have made homophobic slurs. They have unlikable, abrasive personalities and look like they would never amount to more than muscle. This would also be poetic on another level, as Omar sent Bird to prison, and the future Bird got revenge by taking Omar out. In many ways, the story of Kenard is a sad one. I know people think he's a little shit, But as with the rest of the street characters, you wonder how different their lives would be if their environment was different, if they were born in a different street code. Only Namond was so lucky, but Kenard is a boy who has internalized the message and ethics of the street that he doesn't know anything else. We never see him at school, for instance. Kenard's development is a subtle one, but he goes from being a boy playing pew-pew games with his friends to slowly becoming harder, colder and more violent. And clearly Omar, or the image he envisioned of Omar in his head, was an inspiration to him. I don't mean to raid on the parade and completely nullify all the points I just made, but apparently this arc of Kenard was not intentional. Apparently, David Simon didn't even realise that the kid was the same actor who was playing as Omar in the earlier season until the actor told him. He was a good actor and they gave him the role of Kenard. And you'll notice that his gimpy line was delivered off screen. Maybe it was ADR'd in to give his killing of Omar more context after the fact. But even still, it still works. We can chalk it up to being a happy accident if that is the case. So what do you make of Kenard killing Omar? Do you like how this went down? Would you rather it was different? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching.